Thank you for joining. My name is Andre, and I will be your moderator today. This session is titled Interactive Workshop, Defining Use Cases for openBIM plus GIS Integration. The speakers for this session are Mark Goldman from S3 and Jack Malella from WSP. This session is scheduled to last 90 minutes, including time for questions at the end. The session is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event as soon as possible. Before I hand over to the speakers, I would like to remind you that this is a hybrid event. For online attendees, your microphones will remain muted for the duration of this session. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the chat box in the control panel. For the attendees here in the room, please keep background noise to a minimum, and if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and use a microphone. I would also like to bring to your attention that buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent, and standards that are developed do not favor any particular provider and are open, non-binding, and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. And now I would like to hand over to Jack.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Andre. Although Mark and I are the faces for this workshop, it's a workshop, so you'll be mostly working, so less talking from us. So it's actually a perfect way to break the day. I have a team here. I think on the left side we have Mark, certainly Eric Poirier, who helped plan this, Morton, Michelangelo, Suzanne is somewhere. Raise your hands. All of us were part of the and if I miss somebody from the steering committee, let me know. But a part of developing what is evolving as the BIM and OGC, but BIM and GIS roadmap that buildingSMART and OGC communities have come together to develop and take further from concepts and examples to really standardized toolkits to advance the communities and bring them closer together. Because we understand it, but we realize that we do need to work on awareness and bringing those two communities, generally separated, even in organizations, together through some of the work that we'll be doing today, but we have been doing this for about 2 years now. So that roadmap that you see was published in 2024. The objective was to create and implement a user-driven, practitioner-oriented roadmap to advance open standards. I think it's on auto advance. I'm sorry. For seamless information management across infrastructure life cycles, the emphasis was on preserving the data life cycle. And I think from the get-go, I think the plan for this roadmap was to make better use of the tools and technologies we have and catch up to standards, but not wait for standards to be completed before we can actually make the integrations possible. So the roadmap was published, and so it was made available for public comment. For industry feedback, it's still out there. We have had many engagements since then between presenting here and also in the OGC community. To the extent that we could there, and also making it popular amongst the domains through the leadership at the domain level within buildingSMART and also the working groups in OGC. The other thing we did was we formed a steering committee between both the groups, to drive the roadmap activities forward. Okay, so to collect the user stories and drive it forward. I think our approach for this was basically, I know you're probably, you can't get rid of the animation, can you? Yeah, why don't you? Yeah. Just let me stop there. But I will continue talking. So basically, the effort that we did so far was to collect stories at the individual level. So if you are a practitioner and you have a need to connect BIM data with GIS data, we wanted your story. So we actually prepared templates for collecting stories and sent it through the buildingSMART domain leadership and also OGC leadership to collect stories from the ground up. And those stories then were clustered, in some fashion, and elevated to a use case level. So stories are not use cases because they don't generally go end-to-end in terms of process mapping. So, but we did get really good stories, but the themes are similar, even if the domains are different. Domains of work are different. So we were able to abstract and aggregate use cases from there. And from those use cases, we abstracted further up to user category level. Okay, so basically the journey was from user stories collected to use cases, and then to use case categories. So you see sheets in front of you on your tables. You will see a heading. There is a table, and there's a heading to the table. The heading is the use case category. What's in the table is a use case, which is a complete use case that drives process from one end to the other. And we'll get to those sheets in a minute. That's mainly our exercise today. So then the committee met, and we looked at prioritization, of these use case categories. We had many categories. What you see across the room, if you take, it's 5 use case categories that we have prioritized. We probably had 10 to 12 use case categories. Under each category, we had distinct use cases. So that's part of the roadmap development, is to collect that feedback from bottoms up and prioritize them, and then figure out how to drive standardized toolkits to advance the BIM GIS roadmap activities further from there. So what did we end up with? The next step in the roadmap evolution is to actually establish, I want to explain this slide. It's very important for today's workshop. So when we got the BSI domain inputs, our use case categories looked like the ones in the left column. We had environmental impact analysis, design analysis and visualization, and so on and so forth, and you can see that there. But when the OGC community came in, we did see slight modifications to the categories, although they remained the same. I mean, you could fit them into the same categories, except, for example, if you take the environmental impact analysis, we expanded that to environmental and hazard management, because I think we're talking about GIS. If you can, Andre, stay on the previous slide for a second. For design analysis and visualization, made its way to design analysis and spatial visualization. Now you can see where the OGC input is coming in, spatial data and spatial information. Infrastructure planning and alignment came to integrated planning and logistics. It's not just about infrastructure planning. Facility and operational management became lifecycle operations and digital twins. Again, you can see the flavor of the GIS component coming in. So overall, what we saw, in analyzing this was we had user stories from the BIM domain generally were inside out. Mainly they revolved around how do we get detailed project models to interoperate with outside world in context. Whereas from the GIS stories, mostly they were looking outside in, where we were looking at how do we bring detailed built environmental models into large-scale geospatial contexts. But there is a clash. It's not easily done because there's a scale difference, although even if the data pertains, there's a scale issue there. So continuity and data modeling is still a challenge, and everybody knows that. In this room, if you're here, you already know that it is nothing different, but this is what we found, right? And there are some great presentations, even at this session that I've attended, where they tackle scale changes, they tackle digital twinning, from a buildingSMART data modeling perspective versus a GIS perspective. What is, true ground, the right coordinate systems and all of that stuff, and how do we manage it spatially when very large infrastructure assets, across the world. So, so the stories made sense to us, the sorting made sense, but we had landed on those 5 categories. So what we want to do today is really, the next part of the roadmap is, among those 5 categories, we have several use cases. Obviously, we cannot tackle all of them, from advancing the next step perspective. So we still want to refine those into things that we can actually take a bite-sized chunk and work on as a community. So today's exercise mainly is really to establish I don't want to call it the information requirements, because that's not possible in an active workshop like this, but we will ask you some basic questions about which of these use cases are important to you, and then seek your help in prioritizing those use cases through polling. Okay, so that's starting now till mostly towards the end. It's basically your input that will count. So the first breakout and workshop exercise will be a Menti exercise. I hope you all have your smartphones ready because you'll be using them a lot. Everybody's got one? Okay, I'm sure you all have one. So, all right, so I'm going to share my screen now and take you through a Menti exercise. And that's the code. Okay, I see some people already in there, lots of people in there, 38. We've been running this poll. Basically, the first one is, I'm going to go in present mode here. The first question there is obviously your location, where you're from. I see people's responses filling in there.
So that QR code will show up on all pages of the Menti. So if you want to keep going through it, Jag, it'll...
Sure. So I think the first question is, which GIS BIM category is most related to your work? This is the way we are thinking of sorting the room into 5 tables, 5 groups, multiple tables, but 5 groups. So the first one is environmental and hazard management, design and spatial visualization, which I expect to have a lot of people. Lifecycle operations, also a lot of people there. Integrated planning and construction logistics planning would be one. And when you get to the strategic and analytical decision making, it's really about data and schema. It's more about decision support and dashboarding, that bring both the GIS and BIM data together. We got
50 people in the room, and I think, let's see, 30 or so have filled this out. So
35, 61 of 61.
You see 61?
Yeah.
Oh, I see 35, okay.
So we're still coming in there.
Yep.
Come on, there must be somebody interested in environmental and hazard management. Somebody. We're carefree, it looks like. We don't care about that.
No one cares about the environment here. How sad.
Or risk. We're still coming in. We need to get to 50 before we can sort, Mark.
Yep. 50 is the magic number?
Yep.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
Almost there.
16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28. Yeah, we've got easily 50 people in the room here. Come on.
42.
Okay, who hasn't done it? Come on.
Maybe they don't
peer
have
pressure.
It's true. Okay, well, I think we'll take 42. It's fine. So I think we have nobody as expected in the environmental and hazard, something we were betting on at the beginning of this. So that's okay. I think we can split the room into 4 groups. Some groups will be very small. How did we sort these, Mark or Eric? Did we do an order for these?
Yes, we're in order here. So this is environmental, this one is design, that's integrated, that's
Life cycle.
life cycle, and the last one's strategic.
Strategic analysis. Okay. So you're all in the right places because it's important that make sure you look at the sheets on your table and see what the category is on the sheet. If it is not yours, you might want to move to a table.
Well, there's a few more questions in the Menti.
Yeah, there are, yeah. But I do want to, make sure that we don't shuffle yet, but there's one more question. These are 5 more slides. Just hold on to it for a second there, because we do want this input, which in the next few slides, we'll walk through those. They're very important. So under each categories, and you can see these categories, they go from, a traditional development cycle from environmental to design to integrated planning and logistics, of facilities or infrastructure, and then go to lifecycle operations and digital twins to strategic analytical decision making. So it's kind of a flow, if you will, of the
advanced.
Yeah.
People have already gone
on to the next one. So what we're asking for this one in here is, if you look at the environmental and hazard management, we came up with 5 use cases that are kind of exemplary use cases for that category. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're the only ones. We came up with 5 based on the stories. Okay, there could be infinite number of use cases under that category, but we came up with 5. What we're asking you is to vote on one.
Actually, they can vote on 3 of these.
On 3 of the 5? Okay.
Yeah.
So your top 3 of the 5, which you think is of interest to you. Although there was no takers, we still get votes on this one. That's good. Okay. And so what we're seeing here is the environmental impacts and hazards, of course, is on everybody's mind. That's kind of tied with infrastructure and land use optimization. But everything else looks to be on balance, pretty important. Okay.
As you go to the next couple slides, it starts to really show some standout use cases that are more interesting to the crowd.
Right. And we are running this survey throughout the conference, so we are hoping to get more people to vote on these. So on design and spatial visualization, looks like the lead is with spatial visualization contextual analysis. We have seen so many good examples, in fact, even at this conference, that technology is really changing, and we are able to put our infrastructure into context much better now, whether through standards or through just integrated technology sets working together. So that seems to have the lead, and regulatory and early stage data use and construction and logistics seem to be tied. So yes, so we have a top 3 definitely identified there. And then in the integrated planning and logistics, we have real-time construction, progress monitoring. In the top 3 there, smart city operations, resources and energy optimization, clearly the top 3 there, seems like, from what we have seen so far, so that's good. In D, we have data integration and extended BIM. I mean, this is where, when I say data integration and extended BIM, I think the explanation there is you get IoT data and other operational information, to sit on top of your planning level, facility level, deep data. So that seems to be interesting. Maintenance and asset lifecycle management and interoperable digital twin platforms. Nothing on wayfinding and operational efficiency, but I bet when we take this to OGC, we'll find a lot there, right? So that's the nature of where we are. And that's why we need to work with both the communities. So, yep, so we got 3 winners there, the top 3. And here it is data integration and requirements. Certainly requirements, particularly on the buildingSMART domain side, our data tends to be contractual in nature. And so very important on the requirements and how we put it into contracts, because we are bound in many cases to deliver data that is contractually obligated. Master planning and infrastructure development is a second leading category there, and everything else is a toss-up. We may get more. I have a third one that most of them seem to have equal weighting, but we do have a clear winner there, which actually the first category there leads to standardization, requirements and standardization, creating standards both on the BIM and GIS side that actually make these use cases real and easy to use and easy for AI to actually pick up and run on. Okay, we have a tie here for number 3. Okay. So that's the exercise, but thank you for voting. This will be repeated, I think, as I said, we're running it throughout this workshop, but we'll also be taking it to OGC communities. We may even put it online so we can get that feedback from ground up. Okay. So I'm going to switch now. I think we have maybe back to the presentation. Even if you cannot, it's fine, Andre, because that was running ahead. So I have these 5 use cases. This is the time to sort yourself. Thank you for voting on that. That was very insightful. Now we're going to actually do some work. We have table shuffle at this point, workshop activity 2. Make sure you're on the table that you want to be at. If you are, we have only 4, I guess. If you are in environmental, you're on the left side. There's no one. There should be no one on this side of the room.
Well, unless they want to.
Unless you want to hang
change
out.
their mind. And this is a different QR code. This is a survey tool, different than the Menti. So please shoot this. We're going to expect you to provide feedback through this QR code into an actual survey tool.
Right.
So get your thumbs ready to start doing some typing.
Okay.
And again, environmental, design and spatial visualization, integrated
planning and logistics,
lifecycle operations and digital twins, and spatial analytics.
I mean, this is where the fun begins, actually.
So if you feel like there's a table that you just really have a lot to contribute to, move yourself. If you're kind of ambivalent, stay where you are.
I think as a bonus, for your participation, I think one thing we can suggest is, Mark, I don't know how this will be done through buildingSMART, is we can take the survey findings and share it out to the audience here.
Oh, certainly, yeah. So the input that you're going to be doing on the survey tool, in real time, we're going to do a little bit of analysis, but we certainly will summarize and share it with all the attendees.
Yep.
Okay, there's the QR code for the second part of this activity. And it should launch a buildingSMART and OGC branded. All right, I see thumbs tapping away.
So before you do anything, let me explain the rules, okay? So what we're asking you really is, we know that at your table, for example, this table, what's your domain, sir? That's your category, but what's your domain? What's your specialty? Yes. IT, data, right? Data, and yours? Same? Realty, 3D modeling. For rail, so rail, you got property and buildings. Same, mining.
Mining.
So we know that on a table, any given table, you have diversity in your background. So when you look at a use case category or a use case, we already know that you'll be coming at it from your perspective, and that's fine. We want you to come at it from your perspective, okay? But you'll be answering these questions. So when you when you picked an area, obviously you're interested in it, a category, right? Within that, what we want you to do is pick one use case of the 5 that are listed, if you can. Pick one of the 5 use cases and answer 3 questions. You'll be asked to answer 3 questions in the survey form. The questions we're answering is, what are the biggest challenges or unmet needs related to that use case that you see that BIM and GIS integration can actually solve? Right? So what are the unmet needs that BIM and GIS have a chance to solve? I mean, obviously, we're here for that integration. That was on the first form. Okay, so you pick your use case. There are 5 use cases per category. So make sure that you're in the right spot in the survey where you are picking. So if you can switch, if I can share my screen, I'll show you. Don't do anything until the instructions are complete. So pick your category. So first pick, so if you're at the table, you can open the QR code. And let's say I'm picking design and spatial visualization. I'll click that, and I'll advance to the next, and I'll see my 5 use cases appear in the survey form. But this entire form is based on that first question. What are the unmet needs and the challenges, right, that BIM and GIS can solve? So go to the right box. There are 5 use cases. As I said, pick whichever one applies to you that you think that you can see yourself in, right? So for example, if I'm in rail domain, I'm thinking, oh yes, in design and spatial visualization, I want to see where the rail goes through an urban community, and I want to see, it's about urban and community engagement for a new project that I'm planning, right? That is a use case of interest to me. So I'm going to say, what are the biggest challenges that BIM and GIS can solve? And you have a little bit of text at the top, that gives you, and also on your table, on the sheet, that give you a little bit of color. For example, are you communicating design impacts to the community? As an example, challenge that BIM and GIS can actually solve, because you can put the project in context with everything that's around it, and then you can use that for outreach, public outreach, right? So you have a little bit of help on the sheet to contextualize the problem.
So everyone could solve it by themselves, because everyone can do it on their phone. But the idea is to talk to each other and exchange ideas within the table, within your specific domains, with your specific knowledge, to come up with something. But you don't need to write down all the same stuff. So that's why everyone has got their own device to use it.
And maybe before you start typing out an answer, maybe just go around the table and say which of the 5 within your table appeals to you that you think is worth spending a moment on, hopefully across the 2 tables.
We could do that. I think both are good points. One is, this is an individual exercise, but the reason you're in groups is so you can collaborate around a common problem. But also we want to hear which use cases you'll be picking. So if you look at the 5, take your time, look at the 5. But I'll go through the second form is about the integrations, the integration needs, and the third form, the third question. So if you go to the second form, so we have 15 minutes per form, right? Second form is around, we have presented the use cases, what integrations for this use case are possible, are needed, and what needs to change is the third form, which is essentially, we know what has to be done. The next question is, the current state of the practice is not allowing us a proper integration, so what needs to change, whether it's a standard or a tool or a technology set, or even just our attitudes that need to change. So there are 3 forms, 15 minutes per form. But as Mark said, let's take a moment before you dive in. Maybe we want to learn from you which use case is important to you. Maybe we start over there. Gerard, is that clear to you? Is that clear so far? Any questions before we start?
Clear enough?
Back to the QR code, yes. Andre, can you? Good? So, did you guys pick your use cases yet?
Let them talk about this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just maybe take 5 minutes and then we'll poll you. So I assume that everybody is done with challenges, identifying your use case and going to challenge. If you're not, maybe you should think about answering the first survey question. Pick your use case. I really was amazed and really heartened with all the discussions happening at the table. So the first question is about identifying the challenges within the use case that you picked, which BIM and GIS can solve, right? That's the first question. So maybe take 5 minutes, go to the survey form, pick your use case, enter your data, and then we'll walk to the next one. So let's, I know that we don't want to stay here for too long and miss the fun. Should move on to the next question at this point, if you're done with the survey form. The next question is now that you identified the challenges that can be solved, the next question is, what BIM and GIS integrations, in your view, reduce the challenge? For example, you can think about integration touch points, what should talk to each other at a very high level. You can talk about workflows that need to change, or data connections that need to be made. Essentially, describe what kind of integration would solve this. I hope if you see these 3 questions, we really cannot do use case definition in these kinds of workshops, but hopefully it'll get to, we are getting to a use case definition because we're identifying the problem, we're identifying potential solutions, and then the last question will take you through, what changes need to be made in the standards today or even the tools we have. So the second question is on integrations. So focus on that and see for your use case and for the problem you defined, what could help. So we'll take about 10 minutes to complete this. So if you're not already on question 3, please move on to the next question. 10 minutes for that one.
I think a lot of people have to still type out their answer to 2.
To 2, yeah.
They're having good conversations.
Right, right. You mean they're not following the
There are a bunch of
facilitator?
independent thinkers here.
Okay. Okay, so we should be close to getting wrapped up. If you want the beer cert, I'm not the one to hold you guys back. I already heard from Morton that it's going fast. You won't get the certificate if you don't get out of here soon. So, 2-minute warning. Let's close it, and then I'll present our next steps from this exercise, and then we'll share some results from the room. Okay, so hit submit when you're on the last screen, so we get the results back.
So has everyone submitted? Any more that still are going to come in? I see a few people with thumbs on screens. Another minute or so.
So from here, this workshop. So for us, the next steps from this exercise are, we're going to take the, I think as a steering committee, it's still being formed. We have buildingSMART membership already finalized from there. Some of the members are here, from maritime, from rail, from airports. And then from OGC, we're getting some nominations later this month. So we'll finalize the joint working group. The plan is to conduct a similar exercise at the OGC's International Summit in the next month or so, and do the same things there. And from there, we'll pick the steering committee will sort through a lot of these responses, and from OGC as well, and we'll pick the top 5 use cases and prioritize them, or top 2 or 3 that we can advance. This is not something that is not been attempted. There is big efforts, multinational efforts, GeoBIM and others happening around the world. And some of those projects like Check and Accord, I think both of them probably originated in the Netherlands. They are tackling some of these same integration problems at the global scale. So we do know that they're aligned with the roadmap activities. The idea is not so much that this is new. The idea is that we want to shine a bright spotlight in both the BIM and GIS communities. So once we finalize the use cases, I think, and we pick the top 3 use cases or 5, depending on what the steering committee wants to do, the next goal is to actually raise awareness, number 1, by publishing jointly case studies that actually go through those 3 questions and pick cases where these problems have been solved or are being worked on. So to raise that awareness and the messaging around what's possible and what needs to be done. And simultaneously start developing on the standards toolkits, because we do know that some of these need to be based in standards to be effective. So IFC working closely with OGC on what it is. Is it the EPSG coordinate referencing? Is it and looking at the scale that needs to be prioritized for a use case. Some use cases are coming in from GIS side, some are from BIM side. So what governs, in terms of scale and continuity of data. So the workflows aspect of it. So developing the toolkits and ensuring that both IFC and City GML support, the data exchange, but not really waiting for the standards to completely be finalized. And there is an ISO effort as well that Eric is a part of, that is also looking at similar things from an ISO standpoint. So looking at the community work that's happening in the standards world, and informing those communities on the needs related to these use cases that are prioritized. We expect the use cases to be like an agile selection, that it is not one and done. We pick few to standardize the toolkits, and then if there is sufficient advancement in, let's say, 2 years, we move on to the next 5 and so on and so forth. But the other goal will also be to engage software vendors to make sure that we align their technical roadmaps with the priorities of these use cases. And at some point, I think we haven't really figured out how to get funding into this. It will require the communities and the technical experts to come together to really solve the data problems and standards issues and software implementation issues. It could be a joint call for pilots. That was actually done. Some of you may remember that there was a pilot effort that took place, but I think now with real world problems defined, we may reinitiate the call for pilots, and that'll give the steering committee members and anybody else who wants to provide technical inputs, especially the domain experts, to come in and help. And to build capacity, really to put out toolkits of standards, case studies, data frameworks, and potentially API integration tools and toolkits, so that people can actually realize these use cases in their own workflows. So I think this has been tried before, and this has been successful in some of the projects I mentioned, like the Czech and Accord projects. We will use those as templates to bring the software technology vendors, the industry, and the standards organization together to solve some of the community surfaced use cases. So that's kind of where this effort is headed. If you are interested and you're part of one of these groups, certainly you're welcome to join in. You can use me as the contact, or Mark. We'll definitely keep you involved and in the loop. So from that perspective. So Mark, are we ready to share any results here?
Yeah, actually, if you can check your email, I copy and pasted the a summary.
Okay,
so in that same sort of a topic of staying involved, we're going to figure out some way of summarizing this and getting it out to all of you. It might mean that we send an email blast to everyone who attended the summit with the findings, because we don't necessarily have a list of attendees for this particular session. But we intend to do some quick summarizing, and then hopefully find some PhD or master's students who want to scrub through this and really take an educated analysis of it.
Can I share my screen and window? I think I can. Magic GPT did summarize it for us. Now, we have to sort through this, of course, but I think really quickly the first problem area, which is use case category, which is design and spatial visualization. Better?
A little bit.
Yeah?
That's great.
Okay, that's about all I can do. So, all right. So from that very first one, which is design analysis and spatial visualization, the challenges are large infrastructure projects not loadable at the high detail, especially hitting the visualization limits. I think I saw an excellent presentation today that talked about this, that loading in parts. But anyway, I'm trying to get to solutions, but that's a challenge. BIM GIS coordinate mismatches and georeferencing difficulties. Yes, I think that is a problem for very large linear infrastructure, or maybe even disparate infrastructure or facilities in different parts of the world or different parts of a region. Keeping data current on construction site zonings and permits, especially. Missing 3D data, especially around piping and underground utilities. Difficulty communicating with stakeholders and non-technical users especially around context, especially around design analysis and visualization. I mean, really great challenges. They're identified, I think, very commonly understood. Integration, smarter data linking and streaming across BIM, GIS, AR, VR, and IoT. Hazard data integrated into design and routing models, again. Topology, topological information to help analysis is very important, especially when it comes to routing, and also in terms of flooding and other things, and wildfires. Overlaying and contextualizing BIM and GIS for visualization. Combining 2D or 3D open data with design models. And AR, VR for stakeholder content. So those are all integrations that are possible, and then the changes that reflect these are adoption of IFC 4.3 for improved georeferencing in BIM GIS workflows, greater emphasis on performance-ready platforms for visualization and streaming. So I can already see some standard stuff there. Actually, more than standards, I think it's standards on georeferencing. Sometimes we don't georeference accurately, actually, in the projects also. That's another problem. So it could be education sometimes, not necessarily lack of standards. Greater emphasis on performance-ready platforms, yes, especially for large, high-volume data. Simplifying tools and interfaces for communities and stakeholders. Expanding use of, I think consumability, non-technical users, shifting from static design models to dynamic data-fed visualization environments. Yes, another great point here. Again, a lot of progress being made in the technology sector, but it's mainly technology people making the progress. Okay, so I'll pick one more area. Is there an area you all want to see next? Digital twin?
Digital twin.
Okay, there we go. Challenges, different systems combined into one platform but without true data exchange. So, I mean, I see this. I mean, true data exchange, I think sometimes my pet peeve with digital twins is actually it's not just an exchange, but it is a bidirectional exchange. You know, it's like you need push information to your twin, virtual twin from a physical twin as well, you know, and from virtual twin to your physical twin too, you know. So lack of clear data governance, roles and responsibilities. Yes, I think that is a huge challenge. Data silos and immature lifecycle management adoption. Lack of skills and perceived benefits. Fragmented ontologies and unclear data requirements, yep. There's no doubt about that. So a lot in this category appeal to data governance and ontology. I mean, basically, essentially to data, right? And some to skills, I can see that. And in terms of integrations, standardized APIs and connectors, yep, that is especially open API. GIS BIM integration for asset management and location-based analysis. Interoperable compliance checks with open data sets. Yeah, that's a big one. On the changes, shifting from model-based to object API-based workflows. Yes, I think this has been a long standing call on what needs to be done to integrate these better. Moving towards lifecycle-based asset management. Okay, that's a philosophical shift, change of mindset. So part of this journey is also change of mindset. You know, I think BIM GIS is a part of the enterprise IT data governance. Unfortunately, we don't think of it that way. Today, I know that from my experience, it's not necessarily the case. In fact, both of them are out of the IT loop, generally speaking. I don't know what your experiences are, but IT is IT and GIS is GIS and BIM is BIM, right? I mean, so I think some of the toolkits we're talking about is educating both communities to come together and also IT at the enterprise level. So standardized APIs came up again for open integration. I think this is the way to go, I believe. Yeah, some really cool stuff there. So did we find anything? Let's see. Okay, we have 3 categories. The third one is on strategic analytical decision making. I expect a lot of data focus on this as well. Managing heterogeneous data sets. Yeah, because it's about cross-domain use, right? I mean, it is really about bringing data sets together. Poor quality, again, a lot on data side. Multiple tools, too many models, and lack of CDE, especially a CDE that binds both the data sets together, you know. That is data-centric CDE, which we don't have. You know, we have CDEs also are silos, you know, but the common data environment requirements have to transact in data, and that's something we don't have. Lack of common ontologies and dictionaries across disciplines, yes. I mean, so a lot of data problems. I don't necessarily know how to solve these. These are things that we have to keep chipping away and solve them. But I think use cases might be a way to showcase that it is possible and these are the benefits it brings. And that's the effort here. Integrations in the platforms for cross-domain data integration, multimedia visibility, making it easier for the non-technical users to actually see the benefits actually of using data sets. I mean, it's not clear to people when they see something, when you have a very highly detailed building in a geographical context, they think it's easy. That's okay, they should think it's easy. But we should make it easy that the work behind that is very difficult. And I think when they see that, they'll be able to probably appreciate what they can get out of that. But they probably don't realize what it takes to get there, right? Regional data sets curated with governing bodies. That's a good one. Linking scan to BIM data with GIS for infrastructure planning. Yeah, I think this is another big deal. We are getting a lot of scans done, and building reality meshes on top of that, and then fusing them with GIS is one of the things that can be done. And in terms of changes, moving to curated data sets, governance frameworks, improved georeferencing and location standards across scales. I think that's a huge. I think I'm seeing that theme repeatedly, and I think it's a very important one to work on, because I think most of you know the BIM authoring tools do have a limitation on accuracy in terms of projections of Earth, and when you try to integrate that spatially across large distances, then that could be a potential problem. We need to figure out how to do that. I think we can. Adoption of metadata standards, transitioning to smoother workflows. That's great. I mean, is anything here that jumps out at you? I mean, these are really, this is really wonderful feedback, because as I said earlier, we couldn't define use cases to put into our use case management tool, but what you have defined are the problems, the things that you need to be done, which are problems to be solved, and potentially how to solve them, and getting us to a point where we can actually then pick a use case and then drill deep and do further analysis on the input received, to take it to the next step. So thank you all for participating. Anybody has a thought or two to share? From our perspective, this is valuable information. So the more we keep doing this, the more we build the community, and we welcome you to get engaged into these efforts. Please reach out to me, and I'll plug you into these committee meetings, because we have friends of the committee as well. So,
maybe one comment here from a software developer's point of view. I work at Esri. I'm not in product management, but the product managers, the product owners, the product engineers who are tasked with improving these interoperability problems, this stuff is gold. This is just absolute great content for them to understand the problem, understand the potential solutions, rather than just grasping out of the air issues that they might think exist, knowing that practitioners, other vendors, technologists, consultants had these conversations and came up with these lists of issues and documented it for them. This is extremely valuable from a software developer's point of view, and it's now our job to demonstrate perhaps some pilots at the next summit that show solutions, show examples of these capabilities actually working. So I thank you from a multinational member of buildingSMART, from Esri, and on behalf of the product managers who are going to run with this stuff. Thank you.
Mark. Yes.
Say that again?
How did your Magic GPT work to conclude such?
So all of the data came into an Excel file. All of your answers were categorized. I uploaded the Excel file and asked it to summarize all of the content based on the table that you were at, and it came up with 7, 10, maybe too many responses, and then I asked it to give me the top 5. So it's good. It's not worthy of an academic stamp, perhaps, but we do have, through Eric and his resources, the potential to really put some bright minds on it, and not just AI. And that, I think, will be part of the next steps, is actually to analyze it from an expert point of view, not just an AI point of view.
Yeah, but we will do the deep analysis. Yes, sir.
For us also?
Yes.
Will it be available? Yes. So one way or another, we'll take these summaries, maybe this first chat analysis we might share. Certainly, when we do a proper analysis, we certainly will share it.
I think the plan is to go back to either Dan Little or Aiden to see how we can distribute it to all the attendees. But if you are concerned about not getting if you don't receive it through that medium, certainly you can find me or Mark, and we will be sure to send you a more refined version of this analysis, because be assured we are crunching all these into a database, so we'll have a very granular analysis based on what you input. So, all right,
All right.
great. Well, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Beer Fest.